for those on the West Coast. We have a great webinar planned for you today. We're going to be covering a wide range of topics from current marketing climate, challenges today's marketer space, how to leverage social media in your lead generation efforts, and how proper lead management tools and techniques can exponentially increase how effective your newly generated leads and salespeople perform. So we've got quite a bit of ground to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and keep this intro short. But before we get started, just a couple housekeeping rules. You'll see your chat bar on the left-hand side. Feel free, as each of the presenters and speakers are talking, feel free to ask your questions as we go. We're going to mark them and answer them in order at the end when we have our Q&A session. Also, feel free to ask questions at the end if you don't have any till then. The Q&A will be at the end. So again, just send in all your questions. I'm going to have the presenter's contact information here on the next slide, as well as the ending slide, and I'll keep that up. So if you have any questions that you want to follow up with each presenter with after the webinar is over, you'll have their contact information to do so. Also, we're going to send an email with a link to the webinar recording afterwards. So if there's anything particular that you want to either share with others in your company or organization or revisit, you'll be able to do so. So that's it for housekeeping. I'm going to go ahead and get started by introducing our speakers. Our first speaker is Matt Hines, President of Hines Marketing. Matt brings more than 15 years of marketing and business development experience to our conversation today. His career has focused on delivering measurable results for companies like Microsoft, Boeing, Weber Shandwick, and the Seattle Mariners. He's also authored a number of books, including Modern Marketing Field Guide and Successful Social Selling, which those books can be found on Amazon.com. Our second speaker is Jamie Shanks, CEO at Sales for Life. Jamie is one of North America's leading social selling experts, developing custom social selling strategies for companies in nearly every industry, ranging from startups to Fortune 500 corporations. Jamie is also the Toronto chapter president of the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. And then our final speaker, Kevin Thornton, he's executive vice president over sales and marketing for VanillaSoft. Kevin's career spans over 20 years, leading sales teams that have generated over $1 billion in software sales. In 2013, Kevin was named to the Sales Lead Management Association's 50 most influential people in sales lead management. So we have quite a panel for you today. Open ears, soak up what they have to say, and ask any questions that they have as they're speaking. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Matt, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for joining. I know we all have this is a busy time of year for everybody, so I appreciate you taking the time with us. I've got 10 to 13 minutes. I'm going to keep it contained to that. If you have any questions on any of this content, I'm happy to answer those questions either afterward or offline as well. It's at Hines Marketing, or you can reach me at matt@hinesmarketing.com. So we're going to cover some fundamentals of demand gen for your sales team, and that's a really broad topic, obviously, but I'm going to try to cover a few things I think are most pertinent. First is really sort of how to develop a plan, right? And I think it's really interesting to me that a lot of companies will just dive right into demand generation efforts and not really put any structure around what that looks like or what it should look like. You've got a demand generation team that in many cases has a lead goal, but that lead goal has nothing to do with what the sales team's actually trying to achieve. So the first step for an effective demand gen program for your sales organization, I think, is to do the math. Your marketing plan should be more of a math problem than an art project. I think your marketing plan should start first with a spreadsheet as opposed to a creative brief or a PowerPoint deck. So what does success look like? What number of sales are you trying to hit? How big of a pipeline do you need to be able to achieve that, right? I mean, if you really think about this very clearly, if you were to say, okay, you calculate what you need, if you either have a certain number of leads or a certain amount of sales you need to generate, what percent of those leads are going to convert into qualified opportunities? What percent of qualified opportunities are going to convert into sales? If you do that basic math, like this is not a complicated spreadsheet, right? It doesn't even take into account sales cycle length. But if you can calculate the percentages of closes you expect from lead to opportunity, opportunity to close, add in your average sales price, which is what the ASP is here, You can do this based on the number of leads you're getting. You can do this based on the number of sales you need to generate. You can do this on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis. If you want a copy of this spreadsheet, either the monthly version or the quarterly version, I'm happy to send that to you. Just email me or tweet me a question. I can send you the link. But I think this is where it starts. Is what's the math? What do the numbers need to look like? So question number one is, what are we trying to achieve? Question number two is, who the hell are we selling to? If you don't have a clear customer profile of who you're trying to address, then I think it's going to be really hard for you to actually speak to that audience and help them understand how you can help them. This isn't just how do we message our products to them, how do we actually describe our services to them. If you think about, the fact that, most people don't go to a hardware store to buy a drill, what they're really looking for is a hole. And so when they buy a drill, they're really trying to buy a hole. And the hole even in and of itself is probably a means to an end. So for your customer, figure out what is the context into which you're selling. What are the needs that they have? What are the objectives they have that they're trying to achieve in their business, and what are the obstacles that are keeping them from achieving those objectives? Answering those questions first helps you put your product in the context it needs to be in. If you think about the buying cycle and the way that you get prospects engaged up front, the first two stages of the buying process defined by serious decisions. The first one is challenging the status quo, helping someone understand that what they're doing or not doing today needs to change. And step two is committing to change. It's committing to doing something different in your business, in your life, whatever that is. Only after that point are you starting to look for solutions. So it's important to consider, okay, what's the math we need to achieve, and then what's that customer profile look like? Because if you don't have those two things defined, everything else you'll execute, what channels you'll be using, what messages you'll be using, everything else gets a lot more complicated and a lot less effective. So those two things are most important first. If you understand that buying process and if you understand that buyer's journey, then you can define and manage a sales process that maps to that. And that's really important. If you have a sales process that doesn't match the way your buyers buy, you're creating artificial friction in the process. You're making it harder for people to understand what you're trying to tell them. You're not aligning with the way they're thinking. We like to go into a conversation and we assume everybody's thinking about the process the same way. We assume that everyone's thinking about and understanding the value of what we can provide. And that's not necessarily true. You're going to have a buyer who's incredibly busy, who's come into your conversation without any context, maybe with some great music in the background that's getting them motivated. And if you come in and speak a language or address them at a stage that isn't as relevant, it just creates friction that makes it harder to move forward. And the idea of firing a lot of bullets is also really critical. You need to assume that not everything is going to work. You need to assume that, the path to innovation is paved with failure. Someone told me recently, if you want to be more successful, if you want to increase your success rate, you have to double your failure rate. And this applies to demand gen and selling as well. Know that the messages you try, the channels you try, the tactics you try, many of them aren't going to work. So it's better to fire bullets versus firing cannons, right? If you go and build the cannon first, that cannon may or may not fire. But if you fire the bullet first, fast, quick, nimble, make sure that the bullet hits its mark, validate it by firing a couple more times, then put down the pistol and pick up the cannon. All right. Talk about calculating what you need. I wanted to show this graph because I think it really sort of implies why it's so important, to align sales and marketing together. This chart from a company called Demand Metric takes a look at the percent of companies that are achieving their revenue goals map to the integration between sales and marketing systems. So a lot of times you'll have sales off doing their thing, marketing doing their thing, when there isn't alignment there. When you don't have alignment and integration of those activities, you are far less likely to hit your number, right? Now, what I like about this chart is it not only demonstrates the clear difference between not having an integration and having high integration, which is more than twice the likelihood of hitting your number. It also indicates this is not a black or white game, right? This is not, let's do something, it's not all or nothing. If you start to do something, if you start to measure what a qualified lead and qualified opportunity looks like together, if you start to map the leads you need to generate to the goal of the opportunities created for your sales team, you can move from 36 to 44 to 56%. You can make progress against this piece. When it comes to that message that you need marketing and sales to talk about, demand generation isn't just about firing out emails next Tuesday and hoping people respond. The channel doesn't matter whether you're using social or email or telemarketers. If you're not addressing the people and problems that exist in the market, if all you're doing is talking about your product or service, then you're not likely to actually resonate with anything. If you can't get this message right, nothing else is going to work. And if you understand what those problems are, if you understand what the status quo is you're trying to challenge, if you understand the difference between what people are trying to achieve and what they don't know that could help them change the way they think about something, change the way they're approaching a problem, you're more likely to get their attention. If you think about this in terms of sort of the buyer progression, and when your product actually fits into that progression, your solution in a linear sense is in the middle. People have a pain or a problem, they identify a solution, and then they achieve an outcome or objective. But the way the buyers actually approach this is slightly different. Your buyer starts with a pain or a problem. That's what gets them to challenge the status quo and commit to change on their own. That buying process happens without you. You as a seller can accelerate that, can create precision and direction around what that looks like. But that pain or problem starts, and then you've got an objective and an outcome. Then the buyer considers what solution they care about. Once they've identified what the objective and the outcome looks like, they've decided they're committed to change, and then they look at a solution. So the solution is the last piece of what most people look for. Unfortunately, most sellers, do this the opposite. We put the solution in front. We put the solution in front, hoping people understand what that is, and failing to realize that we need to do the value translation for most of our prospects. And when you think about this in terms of what the funnel looks like, it'd be great, of course, if we could just generate a bunch of leads, send them to sales, and everything works out. Well, the reason why we have nurture marketing, the reason why it's so important to use social selling techniques that Jamie's going to talk about here in a minute, it's so important because the majority of your prospects are qualified and not ready to buy. The majority of your prospects, when you generate inbound leads, you'll typically find probably about 10 to 15% of those leads are qualified, ready to buy, meaning the right person at the right company in the market right now. 60 to 65% of those leads are going to be qualified but not ready to buy. It's more of a timing issue, and there's all kinds of reasons why some of those prospects might not move forward. So if you assume that 60, 65%, 3 to 4 times the number of qualified, ready to buy leads are actually going to need more time, that's why this isn't a linear process. That's why the demand generation work that your team is doing moving forward is less direct sales, lead gen, and more nurture marketing. It's why Marketo and Eloqua and Pardot and content marketing is so, so important. Because if you manage those leads well, if you've already got a relationship and simply stay in touch until they're ready to buy, your cost of acquisition goes down immensely. Your ability to train your sales team on how to do this for themselves, not just rely on marketing to manage Marketo, but to train salespeople how to identify and manage and nurture leads, has a dramatic impact on your ability to be in the right place at the right time more often. So I know Jamie's going to talk a lot more about this when we get into the social selling piece as well. This is another spreadsheet that I'm more than happy to share with anyone, and it sort of helps you enumerate those needs for those customers. It helps you focus on what are the drivers for that organization, for that individual. What are the pain points that exist? Again, think of drivers as the objectives. Think of pain points as the obstacles. Only then can you create a value proposition and set of key messages that tie into what you're trying to achieve. And I'd recommend doing this for the variety of different prospects that you're reaching out to. Inside a particular organization, the way you describe the problem, the way you address the need, the way you sell the hole versus the drill to a CMO versus a CFO versus a CIO is all going to be very different, right? Same product, different angle, different worldview. It's important that you enumerate that and teach your sales team how to do this. By the way, there's a new tool, if you haven't checked it out yet, called HighSpot. It's a startup in Seattle. They're building sales playbook and Salesforce intelligence so that if you look at a particular lead and that lead is a CMO versus a CFO versus a CIO, HighSpot will actually pump in exactly the right message and the right materials for that individual, for that persona. Pretty cool stuff. I know we're running out of time, so I'll move a little quickly. If you don't have lead and opportunities defined, I'm sure many people on this call do. Make sure you do that. And I'm sorry for the eye chart here, but the last 2 columns here on the right-hand side is sales next steps and marketing next steps. It's one thing to have defined the different stages of leads and opportunities and know what it means to be at that stage and what it means to graduate. It's a whole other thing entirely to make sure that sales and marketing both understand what they need to do. What is marketing's job? What is sales' job at each stage? I would argue if you develop this spreadsheet alone and have an agreement between sales and marketing of what this means and what these roles are, you'll start to immediately make your way up that ramp of, higher percentage of achieving revenue. And getting sales to use your content, I know we're running out of time a little bit here before I hand off to Jamie. I think primarily sales will not use your content if they think that they're just a channel for you to get it out there and increase impressions. If sales understands that this content is being created based on different stages of the buyer's journey, if they understand that this content is going to move someone from passive to active, it's going to help someone challenge the status quo, it's going to help someone commit to change. Every good salesperson I know triages everything they do based on what's going to help them make more money. And if they think using your content is going to help them move more deals forward, whether they're sharing that content in email or sharing it over the phone or sharing it through social channels, that's how you get this done. I'm going to hand this off to Jamie here. If you have any questions on any of this, more than happy to take it. I know we move really quickly. I saw some questions in chat that I'll be able to get to later. So Craig, the high spot is HIGHSPOT. That's what high spot is. So definitely check that out. Would love to give everybody a copy of the book, a copy of some of our best practice guides, and appreciate the time. Jamie, the floor is yours.
Matt, fantastic. And everybody in the audience, please understand, from a marketing automation standpoint and the conversion funnel that Matt just described, our business modeled everything that we do to this point in our business because of the teachings of Matt. So, Matt, everything that you just said is absolutely imperative to pushing right at the very top of the funnel, pushing great ideas and insight at the why, pushing people to the how, so that you can ultimately talk to them about the who. What I want to talk to everybody about is a lead generation strategy called the sphere of influence. And here's the main driver and the challenge of the sphere of influence. And that is right. In a utopian world, sales organizations are driving pre-qualified opportunities of buyers that have gone through the majority of the buying journey using the content, and now they want to have a conversation. But for many of us sales professionals, we're also tasked with a geographic territory or an industry subset or named accounts. And then in those named accounts, we're asked, go generate revenue. But here's one of the challenges. One of the challenges as a sales professional is the first instinct is to go onto the corporate website and acquire what are the top logos, what are our best client success stories. And you check a box. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, General Electric. Okay, so let's actually start sending emails and calls and maybe LinkedIn messages and start telling the stories of McDonald's, Coke, and General Electric. Here's the problem. No one cares about those stories because they have nothing to do with the buyers you're talking to. You're probably selling to, the average software company or a healthcare provider, and you're telling them the story of working with Coca-Cola. It doesn't resonate with them. And what I want you to understand is what is called the sphere of influence. The sphere of influence, if I am Matt Hines, okay, if what is in Matt Hines or Kevin Thornton's company at VanillaSoft, the sphere of influence are people that A, used to work with VanillaSoft, B, current clients of VanillaSoft, C, past vendors or channel partners, D, friends of Kevin. To get Kevin's attention means that if it is not within that degree of influence, that sphere of influence, of directly relatable people and stories to the company VanillaSoft, then I can't get Kevin's attention. That is the problem. So what ends up happening from a sales perspective is people prospect for the sake of prospecting. Because what happens, we're given a task. For many companies, they're measuring via talk time and number of dials. So they go through the motions, but that doesn't mean that they're being effective. So what we want to figure out is how we solve these particular problems. Now, LinkedIn, and anybody that knows our business knows that we love social. And social solves a lot of problems. This is one of those things that social solves. One of the challenges is that most sales professionals are not effectively using a tool that can help you roadmap who are most likely or who are great people to start conversations with, to open up new doors and fresh ideas. So most people have not taken advantage of LinkedIn groups for a variety of reasons. They're not interested in the news and insights. They're not interested in competitive intelligence, I guess. But they haven't thought of how they could tap their school alumni. Here's the thing. I was born in 1978. I was at the University of Ottawa from 1997 to 2001. It has been 15 years since I've been on campus. Yet, what I'm about to show you will unlock doors, and this tip was given to us from Oracle, sales professionals at Oracle that started using this 18 months, 2 years ago, and Jill Rowley, who showed us this, and a light bulb went off in my head. And I started using this, and I thought, oh my God, what an amazing way of starting new conversations. Well, I used to run a landscaping company through high school and university, and my mom used to always say, it's not what you know, but who you know. And the whole point of the story was, if you do a great job in the neighborhood, 2 people will hear about it. If you do a crappy job in the neighborhood, 8 people are going to hear about it. So how do we make you better known, and how do we leverage the people that you know? Sales Benchmark Index has a fantastic stat. You are 4.2 times more likely or greater chance of opportunity to create that opportunity based on having a personal relationship. So I'm going to show you a way that LinkedIn is doing half of the homework for you. You just need to know how to tap this. So here's what I'd like you to do. Whether you're listening to this and you can toggle into LinkedIn or try this afterwards from the recording, what I'd like you to do is go into LinkedIn and find the alumni button. I believe it's under connections, okay? Click on alumni, and what it's going to do is open up the university or college that you went to. For those of you that went to those kind of universities that have really strong alumni ties, the Notre Dames, the Brigham Youngs, the Stanfords of the world, this becomes even more powerful for you. And in fact, one of our clients I know at New Horizons, it's an IT training company, their sales team started using this for anybody that was in the military. This also works for military colleges and the military itself. This is fantastic because you have a brotherhood. This is how you're going to use it. You're going to go in to find alumni. What I'd like you to do next, toggle the next screen, is you can start segmenting based on proximity. You can first plug in the years you went to school. Many times I leave that open. That doesn't mean I have to find people my own age, but I'm also able to start segmenting this based on what did they study, what is their current job function right now, what companies do they work for. So I could leave that blank. I could look for very specific companies, such as if I have named accounts, I could start identifying and start highlighting all my named accounts. I can also highlight by geography. So this works for inside sales reps, field sales reps, and account managers, because all of a sudden, and I know we're talking about lead generation, but guess what, people? We're all responsible for finding net new. Even though you're an account manager, you're still part of the net new, a cross-sell and upsell team. So this is can all be used. You just highlight based on your scope of business. Next thing I'd like you to do. What I'd like you to do is to realize that you're able to highlight people that are second-degree connections. Okay, so one of the tabs allows you to toggle over and decide what degree of separation or connection are you from these people. Highlight second degree, okay? Not the people you went to school with and you used to chum around with and drink at the bar with. I want you to figure out people you don't know in your named accounts, don't know in your geographic area. But what do you have in common? You went to the same university. Now, I know this story works with Kevin. Kevin Thornton and I both went to the University of Ottawa because I've demonstrated this tip 1,000 times, and I keep seeing Kevin's face on this alumni button. Kevin and I went to the University of Ottawa. It's a doctoral school with 40,000 students. But here's the piece that's in common. Every single person that went to that school has sat down at the bar, fathers and sons, because it's the just off campus bar, and we have all drank our share of pints. if I wanted to start a conversation with Kevin, what do you think I should lead with? Would it not make sense to lead with something that we cherish dearly in our lives and that we could truly say that we have some shared life experience? We all know the name fathers and sons. And so all of a sudden, what you're able to do is start isolating all of these people. And if you see on the screen in front of you right now, you can find a person that is a second-degree connection in your geographic area at the named accounts if you wanted to, that you're interested in going after. And you could even separate it by buyer persona. So you could isolate this by IT leaders, finance, human resources, sales, whatever you'd like. Just below their photo is a little tiny icon. LinkedIn doesn't make it very easy on you. And it will show you who in your network do you know that knows this person. So all of a sudden, what have we started to do? Let me just toggle to the next slide. Actually, I'm going to toggle one over and then I'm going to come back to it. You have just found people you don't know that know people you know, and the person you don't know, the original person you're looking at, went to your university. So what do you have? You have two advantages going on for you. Number one, you have the bond of trust. Somebody that you know well knows this person that can help you introduce you. The second part is in that introduction message, you also shared a life experience. You went to the same military college. You drank at the same bars. You remember what it was like when this happened at your university, whatever it is. The probability that that person that you're trying to message would open up a door deeper into the company, introduce you to further people into the company, can be a first gateway to taking a demo or taking a first call, whatever you want to do to leverage that person. That probability increases, well, according to the Sales Benchmark Index, 4.2 times because you share trust and you share life experience. And so that's when you can start coming into LinkedIn. And if you're not familiar with doing this, you can highlight the person that you are a first-degree connection to, a second-degree connection to, and click Get Introduced. And it shows you and stack ranks based on shared connections. So basically, the tightness of your social proximity, the power of your social proximity, you can ask for an introduction. Now, I remember Barbara Giamanco she's a social selling expert, had done a study a while ago, and her study, and I believe she did this with Jim Keenan, and they figured out that for every 20 introductions you ask for, 10 people will actually take the time to do it, so they're cut 50% out. And of those 10, half will actually turn into a positive result, and you'll probably land 2 or 3 meetings out of it altogether. But here's the thing, is you've opened up some pretty sticky doors because all of a sudden you have that much deeper bond than you would have ever had before. So what I really hope, and the goal for today, everyone, is I wanted you to realize that there is a really powerful way in these social platforms to start relationships you never thought possible based on people that used to sit in the classroom with you in university. So, Kevin, I want to be able to pass it to you. I hope that tip helped everybody in the audience.
That's great stuff, Jamie. Brings back memory. I forgot all about that. But, yeah, so I'll take it from here and wanted to thank Matt. You know, he shared some great, insightful fundamentals on multi-channel lead gen techniques and the importance of planning and alignment between sales and marketing. And Jamie, you know, every time I talk to him about social media, in particular LinkedIn, how to identify, make contacts, I always learn something new, so thanks for that. So my section today is going to be focused on the merits of queue-based lead management. You know, once you've identified leads, once you've, you know, had an engagement with them, you know, how can you bring them into a lead management system in the hopes of turning these leads and prospects into new customers? So unlike the traditional list-based CRM that's basically static and primarily used for managing relationships with customers, a lead management system is designed for prospecting and new customer acquisition, you know, with your leads in constant circulation for prompt action and follow-up. A queue-based lead management system will also help you through the entire lead process of capturing, distributing, prioritizing, engaging, and tracking how each of the leads is going to be handled. As such, your leads are going to be managed quickly and thoroughly. Management will also have real-time visibility into the sales team's effectiveness and the ability to make informed decisions. List-based systems can actually give salespeople the time to find the perfect reason not to make a call. If the salesperson doesn't make enough calls, overlooks leads, decides to skip leads, or just neglects the list altogether, this can create inconsistencies in reporting, as well as countless dollars wasted generating the neglected leads. Sales managers often report a significant number of unworked leads in their CRM. The truth is that it's not entirely the fault of the salesperson alone. There's no mechanism other than effort and personal organizational skills to ensure that every lead is followed up on. The system does not really help the salesperson do their job more effectively. So unlike a list-based CRM system, a queue-based lead management system, leads are automatically kept in constant circulation, which means no leads are left behind or neglected. Lead routing rules are defined by management and applied automatically based on the call results. This ensures that all salespeople are following the same logic. There's less room for individual performance differences or errors and more focus on actually selling. The fact that sales reps are able to make more calls and all leads are worked evenly and without discrimination naturally leads to better list penetration. Some of the key features to consider for improved list penetration include the ability to query your data and customize your sales queues, lead scoring to prioritize your leads based on certain variables, and lead nurturing to stay in regular contact with leads that are not quite ready to commit yet. With a queue-based lead management platform, the sales rep no longer has to hunt and peck, manually filtering through a list of leads. With preset company priorities and predetermined dispositions, leads will automatically be queued up and presented to the next available sales rep. Once the lead has been called, the call is disposition, and based on how that lead is dispositioned, for instance, left a message, set an appointment, etc., the lead will go back into the queue and will be presented back to the sales rep at the predetermined schedule or interval. No hunting, no pecking, no cherry picking. The salesperson can't do anything other than work the lead that is being presented, and the lead is presented to the sales rep is a lead that should be called based on priority and value. It's the lead that is closest to the money as determined by management. Compared to the standard average of 8 dials per hour, the average call count for a queue-based platform is 32 calls per hour, or a 400% increase. More calls are made per hour because there's no confusion on what lead should be contacted next. There's no downtime between calls with sales reps searching through lists, deciding who to call. It's call after call of the next best lead. As far as productivity goes, some of the key features to consider are call scripts to keep the reps on message with a consistent delivery, voice over IP service with progressive or preview dialing to remove the manual process, especially if reps are expected to make 50 or more calls each per day, and message drop, a convenient way with one click to leave a pre-recorded voice message or callback number when you reach a prospect's answering machine or voicemail. So moving on now to management control. So lead decay can be an issue for your sales team if leads are never contacted or not followed up enough times. With a queue-based lead management platform, a customized workflow is created by management. So once the routing filters and disposition codes have been determined, it's immediately and automatically implemented across the sales floor. There's no question whether a salesperson is working leads as they should be worked because the system enforces management's priorities. A recent survey, hold on a second here. A recent survey revealed that inside sales teams using a queue-based platform see a decrease of 30% in lead decay rate. And this is because with a queue-based platform, there are simply fewer processes to manage and greater control over those processes. When management has greater control over the process and no longer needs to micromanage, it frees up managers to mentor, coach, and focus on sales team effectiveness. Real-time rep activity dashboards, live call monitoring, and recording are key features to help managers with improved control. The last area I want to address today is speed to lead. It's critical that you have a mechanism to receive, assign, and respond to your inbound leads quickly. As HubSpot suggests, half of sales go to the sales rep that can contact a prospect first. A good lead management system will allow you to automatically accept web leads and push them to the front of the sales queue and make them available to the next available sales rep. Leads are available to be acted upon within minutes of submission, giving you a good chance of reaching the prospect first before your competition does. This process ensures that all leads are worked efficiently and thoroughly and maintains the speed to contact on new leads. Lead capture and automatic lead distribution are features of a lead management platform that will definitely increase your speed to lead. A recent inside sales study suggests that a lead management platform dramatically outperforms a list-based CRM or manual platform when it comes to productivity, list penetration, management control, and speed to lead. By implementing the techniques shared by Matt and Jamie, and by implementing a queue-based lead management platform with the full feature set of tools listed here, will help your inside sales efforts and campaigns to be more successful. So with that, I'll pass it over to our moderator, Craig, for QA and wrap up.
Thanks, Kevin. And Matt and Jamie, thank you as well. I appreciate you guys spending the time with us today and sharing your marketing insights. During the presentation, we had quite a few questions come through. I believe Matt had to get off the line. Matt, are you still on? Yeah, Matt had to get off the line. So I'll skip over those, but for those that asked the question to Matt, I'll make sure that he gets back to you directly with those questions. So I'm going to get into some of these other ones. Let's see. Okay, so Jamie, what do you think of the new LinkedIn post option that allows you to share blog length updates? Is that something we should be doing as sales professionals, or should we be looking to marketing to provide that for us?
So it's a great question. The first thing as a sales professional you need to ask yourself is, do I have an intention to build myself a personal brand? We have no illusions as sales professionals that for the most part, the company you work at today is not the company you're going to retire at. So you need to not only feed the funnel of your current company, but you need to fuel your own personal brand. And I believe it serves both those purposes. Purpose A is this is a lead generation tool. You are posting content, providing insight and value. If you truly believe that social can increase your pipeline, then of course you'd be using this because it's a sticky mechanism. It actually stays on your LinkedIn profile, whereas when you share content, it goes on the wall, but people can't find it on your profile later. So that's why I love it. But as well, everybody, if you inherently believe that it's important for you to build your own personal brand, this is the tool for you. So, absolutely.
Okay,
I guess to answer the second part of that, no, while marketing may have posted the original blog, you could take content your marketing team has already created and leverage that on your LinkedIn posts.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, for you, how is a solution like VanillaSoft different from a marketing automation platform? Are they the same?
Yeah, great question. So they're not necessarily the same. A marketing automation platform. So VanillaSoft and our lead management platform includes some marketing automation tools. Marketing automation platform is great to aggregate leads from multiple channels to qualify and nurture those leads and bring them, make them sales ready. So we do have, certain marketing automation aspects with our lead management platform, but it's bringing those sales ready leads into a queue-based system, the ability to route those to the appropriate sales teams or sales reps based on different metrics, based on different routing filters, and then allowing those sales reps to do the follow-up either via email or phone to turn those prospects and leads, to nurture them, qualify them, and then turn them into new customers.
Thank you, Kevin. Jamie, I've got another question for you. Other than working directly in LinkedIn itself, what social media managed solutions are best for social selling?
Yeah, so I would call it I can't even know if I'm going to say 5 or 6, or I would call it our big 5 or big 6. For us, And because we teach the sales professionals to leverage first free tools, once you've mastered once you've derived return on investment with something that is free, and you're generating a return on investment, it only makes sense to begin to start paying for these tools. And of course, we use LinkedIn, but we started using LinkedIn Premium, and then we upgraded to LinkedIn Navigator because the return on investment was there. But from an individual sales contributor who doesn't control a budget, it's LinkedIn, it's Twitter, it's Hootsuite, personal, not run by your marketing team. Pocket for storing content and creating your own personal content library. Feedly, which is FEED.ly, which is, I personally think, the best content aggregator in the world. I have used LinkedIn Pulse. I'm just not as familiar with it. I grew very accustomed to Feedly, which was part of Google. And I use, for more advanced users, I use If Then Then That. It's called ifttt.com. What it does is it creates connections from one product to the next. So if a company posts something on their LinkedIn corporate page, posts a new job, then automatically email me. If your buyer tweets something, then automatically do this. So it just connects tools. So those are the main tools that I like to use on a daily basis. Now, above and beyond that, we use eQuire to take content from LinkedIn or from Salesforce or from LinkedIn and help aggregate or place that information into our Salesforce.com. Yeah. So there's all kinds of tools, but those are the ones we use all the time.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Kevin, this is kind of a two-part, well, it's not really a two-part question, but it's two questions, same person, so I'll get those both answered. First is, does a queue-based system work if you are calling larger accounts with multiple people per account? And then the second question is, they've heard a lot about new laws against auto-dialing, yet you recommend it. How do you stay legal with auto-dialing?
Sure. So first question, yes, a queue-based system can manage corporate contacts when you have multiple touch points, multiple contacts within an account. You've got ways to cluster them together so that they're easily accessible. You can also route them to the same individual if there's a named account manager, so that way you don't have two separate people calling into the same organization. So yes, there's filters and mechanisms in place to accomplish that. The second question is great regarding dialing. So there's different types of auto dialing. There's predictive dialing, there's progressive dialing, preview dialing, and we support preview and progressive dialing where there's still it's a one-to-one call made by an actual person as opposed to a robo-dial. A lot of the recent laws are to do with robo-dialing and machines dialing the phones, multiple lines at once versus a one-to-one call made by a sales person. There's also other things out there such as do not call compliance that can be initiated so that as you're calling out and you're cold calling, the system is scrubbing against the current do not call list to make sure that anyone that is on a do not call list, either their landline or their mobile phone, has been scrubbed first. If the contact is not on the list, then that lead can be released into the sales queue. If it is on a list, it will automatically be retired and put on a do not call list. So great questions.
Thank you, Evan. And then, Jamie, for you, there's I guess the first one is, based on my company, we are having a tough time getting in contact with business owner or decision makers. How can we leave a good impression for the host or a manager? I guess I assumed this was the social selling might be a different one. It says that it will both be a cold call or follow-up. We are placing outbound calls. Okay, so that's for outbound calls. That might be the question for Matt.
Well, team, what I'm putting in the chat box for everybody is, let me just press send to this. So I believe it's every Wednesday we host free social selling tips for anybody, and I can't remember the topic of this week. please, and I just put it in the chat box, it's bit.ly, bit.ly/get-social-training. And we do this every Wednesday. Please join in. And whatever the topic is of that week, we'll provide you those free tips. And hopefully those are being answered. And if they're not, you're going to have a live trainer on the call. Ask them your question, and they'll help you out.
This was the other one, Jamie. It says, what's the best way to determine if your story will affect their sphere of influence?
What is the best way to determine if it will?
Yes.
The best way to determine if it's going to affect their sphere of influence is it needs to be within what I think are the big three. The big three are, they are a direct competitor. Competitors just thrive on wanting whatever their competition has. Number two, they are a past employee to that company, and now they're in a position of power. So let's use VanillaSoft as that example. You had somebody that left the sales team, and then now they're the vice president of sales over at company ABC in Ottawa or in Texas. All of a sudden, you have worked with VanillaSoft. You have that success story. They used to work there. They know people that work there. And they can imagine what it would be like to apply that same solution to their new environment. That's number two. And number three, it is a direct introduction from an internal champion, from your client, that has introduced you to that very specific person. And the person that they introduced you sits the person that introduced you, the introducer and the introducee, find each other in high regard. So like somebody personally has given you an introduction, just like any other reference, but those three, if you're going to tell that story, if you're, and remember, you don't have to wait for that person to introduce you. You may actually be able to, you could tap people's LinkedIn networks and determine who they know. And you can say, listen, I've been working with Kevin Thornton, and this is what's been happening. These are the cause and effects, and this is the return on investment. But if that person is intimately aware of Kevin Thornton and his friends or past coworkers, and they hold Kevin in high regard, the probability that it moves to the next step is so much greater. But remember, right in your subject line, right in the body, if you even have a video from Kevin or any piece of empirical evidence you can provide, that's the kind of thing that gets people's attention. I hope that helps.
All right, Kevin, I've got one last one for you, and then I think our 50-minute cap is up. It says, can Mr. Thornton elaborate more on lead decay? How can it be identified, and how can it be prevented?
Sure. So an easy analogy, leads are kind of like fresh fish. When you go out to the market and you bring it home, it's best to prepare it and consume it right away. If you have it sitting around in the fridge a couple of days, it starts to stink. Same thing with leads. If you'll want to have a system in place whereby when leads are distributed, either management, sales manager has the ability to watch those leads, make sure that they're being followed up on, promptly. If not, the ability to pull them back potentially and reassign them to someone else. So the visibility by management to see the leads, either by looking at, the last call date, looking at any of the notes, any of the results, and the ability to see if leads that have been distributed have not been acted upon, that you can have a conversation with your sales rep to find out why, or else those leads can be pulled back and redistributed to someone else so that you can act upon them very quickly. Speed to lead is very important, and so and those leads are like little nuggets of gold, and so you really need to be able to act upon those quickly. So hopefully that answers the question regarding lead decay.
Thank you, Kevin. I put up the contact information for each of the presenters. Again, I know that a lot of you had questions for Matt, so I'll go ahead and document all those questions. But if you want to reach out to him directly, as opposed to me forwarding those questions to him to reach out to you, feel free to take his email address down. Same for Jamie and Kevin. Their email addresses and Twitter handles are there. So feel free to reach out to them there. Within the next 48 hours, you'll receive an email that will have a link to the webinar recording. So look for it there, and I think that'll wrap it up. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Kevin. And thank you to the ghost of Matt Hines.
Have a great day. You take care.
Thank you.